How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be doing a rear differential service on a 23 Passport. Now, this will apply to basically any Honda or Acura with a rear diff. Now, they might look slightly different. They have changed over the years, and some of the older models take VTM fluid versus dual pump system fluid, which is what we have here today, and very easy to identify. You have the DPSF stamped on the fill plug right over here, and this will be the drain plug. Now, if it's a VTM system, it should have VTM stamped over here. In most cases, you should be inquiring with your local dealer which fluid is right for you. But once again, most new fluids are going to be this one in most new cars, and the VTM is kind of phased out at this point. But if you're watching this and you have an older Pilot or MDX or something along those lines, then it's possible that you do need VTM fluid instead of dual pump system fluid. So in this case, we have two different crush washers. Both of them get torqued to 35 foot-pounds, and I'll have the part numbers for you in the video somewhere. And some of them are going to have two of this style, which are just a bolt. Most of them will have a drain bolt with the magnet, and will be two different size crush washers. So that is that. Very simple. You need a 3/8 ratchet. I typically like to use a long one like this to loosen it, and then a short one to tighten it, or you should be using a torque wrench once again. And that's basically it. 35 foot-pounds, very simple to do, very easy, and you'll need obviously some sort of a transfer pump. Now, you're going to want to make sure that your car is level, or as level as possible when doing this, because when you're filling it up, you're going to be basically filling it till fluid comes out of here. Most cars will take about 1.3, 1.4, and this will take about 2.5 quarts. So again, contact your local dealer, inquire how much you do need. So in this case, this takes about 2.5. So we're going to need 3 full quarts, and then we'll have some left over for a different vehicle, or in your case, for a future service. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the simple process. All right, so first things first, you're going to want to loosen the fill plug first. Obviously, if you can't get that loose, you don't want to drain it, because at that point, if you can't get the top one loose, you can't fill your vehicle back up with fluid. So 3/8 drive, no other special tools needed, and just insert it. On older vehicles in a rust-prone area, you might have to use a pry bar as leverage, or a small hammer to tap the ratchet right in there, so you get some good turning power and you don't strip it out. And then you're just going to give it a nice tug here. And as you can see, it requires a decent amount of force. And then once that's loose, you're going to want to come here to the drain plug and do the same thing. This is a fairly newer vehicle, but once again, as they age, sometimes stuff gets in there and does make it a little bit harder to get full grab of the bolts. So wiggle this out. Now I like to take out the drain one, or the fill one first, excuse me, just to make the flow a little bit easier. And if you're not doing this on a level ground, then obviously you're going to have two issues: potentially draining enough fluid out of it, which is okay, but then you want to make sure that it's absolutely level to when you fill it, so you get a good reading and the accurate amount in there. All right, so now you're going to get your drain pan over here. Now, this fluid does have about 30,000 miles. I'm not sure if it was changed before or not, which there's no dipstick or anything like that for us to check. But considering there's a very small amount of shavings here on this drain plug, which is magnetic, I'm going to assume that this is not the first time that this is being changed at this point. Normally, the first change happens between 7 and 15,000 miles, and we could find a decent amount of collection here on this drain bolt. So we'll let that drain out a little bit. These crush washers could be stubborn, so I just take it on a corner of something and kind of just break it loose. And we'll let that drain a little bit more and get it to a trickle. Now, put our drain plug back in. And you can just either make this snug now or fully tighten it. That's completely up to you. And we're going to start pumping some fluid into the diff. Let me just back you guys up here a little bit, show you my contraption here. So this is our pump. It's just a hand pump. I will have something in the description that you guys can use, some sort of a transfer pump. So a pump here, we're going to put our fluid in here, and we reuse this obviously, and it comes out the nozzle right in here. And I do have something different I use at home, so I'll make sure to have that in the description. So show you guys what's going on here. We have our pump once again, 3 quarts of fluid, and my torque wrench here, and we're just putting fluid through this top hole right over here. Sometimes you could go through here if needed. Sometimes there's a spare here on certain cars in this area. So really depends on the application. Sometimes, you know, drain and fill is on either side on like CRVs and stuff like that. So just really depends on your situation here. But now we're going to pump this fluid in. And once we have some trickle effect going on over here from the fill side, we will be done. All right, now I put 2 quarts in it already. I didn't want to bore you guys watching me put all the fluid in there. So we are our 3rd quart. So halfway through this quart, we should start seeing some fluid coming out of this top fill hole. And here we go. And now you're going to want to let that come to a trickle as well. If you leave it a little bit overfilled, it's more than okay. It's not going to cause any harm, but you don't want it absolutely pouring out because obviously that would be way overfilled. Also, if you were to check this fluid at some point, you will know that this is enough. If you leave it completely level, none of the fluid might come out. At this point, we're going to put our fill plug back in. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way for you guys and just torque these bolts down. So once again, 35. This one. And that's 2. So at this point, you can either use some sort of cleaner to clean this off or just take a rag like I'm doing here, just so you don't make a mess anywhere where you're driving. And you are good to go. So with that being said, that's basically it. You should be doing this depending on your driving style. And if you have any modifications, you go off-road or anything like that, between 15 and 30,000 miles. I wouldn't really go past 30,000 miles at any given point. Although, you know, right around there should be okay. That being said, hope you guys learned something. I'll catch everyone on the next one.